Sensitivity is intelligence. With grace and skill, you have abundance. Welcome to the Psychic Hour. Host Kelly Brickle is a psychic medium healer, numerologist, and teacher. Her passions are learning about the soul and energy. Whether it's through spirit, emotion, or vibrational numbers, there's always a pathway of information waiting to help. Now, here is your host of the Psychic Hour, Kelly Brickle.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Psychic Hour on WLTKDB. Let's Talk Radio. Hello to everybody coming on in. We have an awesome show today. We have medium and spiritual portrait artist Maureen Dana. And so we're going to be going into her journey and her unique skills with how she brings in spirit and connects to the spirit world. So I'm going to love it. I'm always curious to know how people work when they are doing multiple things at once. Granted, that's what it means to be a medium, yes, but she's drawing and connecting, and I love hearing about that. And I'm so connected within my clairvoyance as a medium and a psychic, and I know she is too, so I'm gonna have fun. Hello, everybody. Hello, Kevin. Hello, Courtney. Welcome, welcome. And so the topic of the day that I really wanted to dive into and highlight was, it was a mixture of, sometimes there's one word that really bursts through, but it was a mixture of courage and subtlety. Okay. The reason it comes forward is because we all ask for signs from spirit, or when we're developing as psychics or mediums or healers, we're always looking for that specific sign. We're always looking for that accuracy, that validation of what we're feeling and sensing, seeing, hearing is real. And we want to be so certain as we're developing our professional self, or we want to be so certain as we're getting deeper and deeper into our work, we'll ask for things like, show me the sign 3 times before I know, or my knowing has to be online, and I have to get maybe this very visceral or intense sign, or I need something because I'm not sure that's right. And there's a responsibility in that. And we do need to have our faculties, our senses online. We really do. That's real, and that's what makes us responsible with our information, so we're just not sharing whatever. So absolutely. But when we've done the work, when we are in a place of development or wonder or curiosity where it's a safe place to just try new things and to surrender to spirit, to really surrender and have courage with that subtlety. And I do think within this work and within our life, we have to rekindle the fire of courage, because when we're so sensitive, even though we're well intentioned, or even if we're sensitive and we get a piece of information, but maybe not all of it, or even if we're accurate 100%, but someone rejects it for whatever reason, we go, oh my gosh, how could I be wrong? How could something that was so like pure or well intentioned be so rejected or be so misunderstood? And we're kind of like fractured from that, because all of our energy is in this had to be the right thing, or it came from such a good place. I don't understand. And to rekindle that courage, rekindle that passion, and spirit really comes with the energy of fire. We have to be like kind of ignited. We have to be enthusiastic almost when we work, because they uplift our energy. And I do feel like there's been times within my own life where I've been confused, always believing, but very confused by spirit, and I go, why didn't this work? Why didn't that work? Why is this now not working? And my fire got a little bit watery, right? Emotions are great, water is great, but that enthusiasm, and that inspiration, I think, was a little bit lost, because I didn't have the courage to go, keep going, try this, try that. And when I did, sometimes I'd get very confused. So there's this subtlety once we find our equilibrium that has to be really acknowledged again, where we go, I don't need to see this 3 times. I'm just going to say something and see what I get back. And especially if you're a student, especially if you're just trying things, absolutely go that route. You might, again, have to develop some thick skin and that courage personification, that idea of what does it mean to just keep showing up despite such confusion. That might really, really shine its place within your journey. It will. But it really garners these wonderful results of finding and wiggling your way into a position that does feel uniquely so authentic all words in me sometimes so authentic to you, okay? And I do think, like, when you are not sure, when you're like, why do I need so much validation, why am I having so much confusion, and you walk through the fire and you walk through the uncertainty, again, you're rewarded with the exact opposite of uncertainty. You're rewarded with so much more certainty. When you feel like you don't have courage and you walk through the fire and you keep going, you're rewarded with just that courage. And I think, we have to experience the opposite in order to have such peace with what we are looking to be and become. I do think that it takes also understanding to see what you have the lack of and what other people have the lack of around you to encourage healing, and to encourage guidance in those areas too. So it's all part of the journey. We ask ourselves, why can't I have this? Why isn't this easy? Why isn't this coming to me? And really, we're meant to, as mediums and psychics and healers, to have a very intimate and compassionate understanding of the human experience. So why wouldn't we infuse, within our learnings and our understandings, these very human experiences of difficulty, along our journey? Why wouldn't we? Because when people are around us are going through the ringer, we go, gosh, okay, that reminds me of a time, or okay, I'm not aware of the objective quality, because I'm not a spirit looking in on this. I'm aware of the subjective quality of what it means to be a human and the struggle and what those emotions can feel like and what circumstances that can bring forth with family, with friends, with yourself. And honestly, if you can understand the human element while you're giving the evidence, those are some of the best readings because you really touch the heart of a person and you really guide them through what they're emotionally processing. Because I do think, you know, life is so visceral on different levels. Life is so consuming on so many different levels that we have emotions and energy just naturally that are just stuck because we've coped, we've gone forward, we've done the best we can. And so, if you can understand within your own experiences as what it means to be a human, what it means to be an intuitive, what it means to be just a person doing their best, but have some of those experiences under your belt. I think it makes some of the best psychics and mediums out there because you got to treat a person like a person, you got to treat a soul like a soul. Everyone wants to be heard and accepted and understood. And it's not just about the evidence. It's not. It's so much more than that. There's a saying, people will always remember the way you've made them feel, not what you've said. And that really like echoes through a lot of the things that I try to remember within my work and when I'm around people, and it's something I have to remember. It's not something that I always just walk into 100%, but it's always something I try to um come back to and let it be because I do feel like it is so powerful. So with that said, let your inspiration of your courage being ignited, and let your inspiration of just trying to embrace the subtleties of how the spirit world and how whether it's your faith, your religion, your spirituality, or the way that you walk in the world, just as you're curious and allowing yourself to be curious, see what happens where you're guided. Just see what happens. And more than often, you're going to be pulled to an area where you go, wow, didn't expect that to happen. That's quite interesting. And then you just go from there. And that's what really keeps the journey excited. So, with that said, we will be back in a moment to talk with Maureen Dana, and we will be looking at all your lovely comments. So hello to everyone coming in. Again, I love that name, Shazni. I love that name, and Jessie Cat. Hello. We will be back in a few. Looking forward to it. And just like that, we're back. Okay, let's bring in Maureen. Hello. Hey. I'm going to give you 2 waves.
Two fives for Cinco de Mayo, right?
That's right. We'll clap to that. Is that the clap? The universal like sign language. Is
Maybe
it this?
American Sign Language? I don't know.
Or this? Yeah. It's making me kind of want to do this. I don't know my sign language. But it's another language, right? To learn. There's some really wonderful mediums that know sign language. You're making me think of just kind of all these beautiful thoughts as you come in with your beautiful energy. So I want to introduce you so people can appreciate who you are. Maureen Dana is an ordinary woman with an extraordinary gift. Based in New Jersey, Maureen is a medium with a passion for helping people connect with their loved ones who have passed on. From a young age, Maureen had unexplainable experiences that connected her to the world beyond. Her father passed before she turned 2, but she recalls experiencing his presence and talking to him throughout her life. Maureen has had the honor of working with thousands of individuals as a medium and now a spirit artist. In 2020, Maureen's spirit guides introduced her to the concept of spirit portrait art. She continues to learn to draw and has been able to create visual representations of loved ones' essence. Whether it's someone who receives a message from a loved one, Maureen believes it's incredible to be part of a journey that helps open people's minds and hearts to the fact that life continues on. Welcome.
That was a mouthful. Good job.
Yeah, but I like it, you know? I think it's very comprehensive of how this has been your world since you've been young, and you've navigated it still in these, expansive ways where you're learning about yourself. And now you're a spirit artist as well as a medium.
Yes, that was an unexpected facet that I didn't even know existed. But it's something that came on later on. But I think with a lot of things in life, when we go back and take a look, well, that's how ironic, which I don't believe so much in coincidences. But there are a lot of tie-ins now in hindsight, just like with everyone else. But when you look back, oh, okay, that explains why I was able to see that, or how I was able to see certain things. So I guess it was just it was the timing when it went ahead to open, but completely unexpected, like most of the different abilities that spirit goes ahead and gives us, I think.
Well, you mentioned that you lost your father at a young age. So did you see him right away when you were young? Or did you come into that knowing and you had thoughts and you had experiences?
It's really interesting because as time goes on, I have a pretty good memory, literally from being in the crib. Those were some of my first experiences, and not so much him. I could remember my first home, and we moved, I think, around 3, 4 years old. But I remember it vividly, and I remember like shadow people walking in behind the crib, and them talking and seeing different things. But I just had a knowing. I don't have many memories of my father, uh, but it was just always from the time being little, looking out the window, speaking with him and feeling him. But of course, you'd get into your head as you got older. But I had all these other experiences that I hoped, but I learned not to go ahead and speak them. Like if you've heard of people with imaginary friends for so many years, you'd hear people say, oh, when I was a child, I had an imaginary friend. And oddly, just going back to it, I feel like there was actually someone there because I can still remember exactly what she looked like. I mean, I would hear her,
Yeah.
and then to learn early on, oh, they can't see, they can't hear her. But I think that was just placed in my life early on, I guess, I don't know, as a coping mechanism and so on. But it wasn't until much later did, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that he proved, so my father's very much in my life. And I'm trying to think, even after my daughter was born, for example, it's that knowing. How do you know? No one really spoke about this growing up with my family. And I had so many other different experiences, but one that I just knew it was my father. I was holding my newborn daughter. And, as a new mom, I'm exhausted, falling asleep, feeding her. And my eyes were closed. I'm sleeping. And my husband was so sweet. He went to gently blow in my face to wake me up. And so it woke me out of my dream. And then with my eyes still closed, I still felt this cold burst of air in front of my face. I opened up my eyes and I got the third burst, and he was passed out in the back bedroom. And I just remember running, take the baby, take the baby. I just knew my dad was sweetly waking me up. But how would I know that? But it was just one of those knowings.
Just one of those knowings.
Mm-hmm. So I definitely, now looking back, being led, whether it was him or others, it makes total sense now, but I just wasn't able to fully comprehend the guidance, getting out of certain situations, and even down to the art. Yeah.
When you had these knowings, once that moment kind of activated, okay, this is real, did you have just an opening of knowings with the energy of, okay, and I see this and I'm acknowledging this and this is coming together? Or was it a slow build?
It was a bunch. There are numerous events that occurred. A lot of them happened within the past 10 years, a little bit beyond 10 years. But I would have things that I just could not explain. I think, for example, I was a teenager. I was 19. I had just met my boyfriend, now husband at the time. And one of the experiences that really caught me off guard is I was meeting his cousin for the first time. And when I went over to reach and touch his hand, I had, as I'm saying, hi, nice to meet you, I had a vision in front of me of him having passed away in the funeral home. And I still vividly remember, thinking, what is wrong with me right now? Like, I'm meeting someone for the first time and I'm seeing the layout, the wallpaper, the people in line. And that kind of shook me, I'll be honest. It shook me a little bit. Why would something like that be seen? And had all these other crazy experiences. But the reason why I bring this up is I've had that many, many times since. Unfortunately, a couple years later, that vision actually was a reality down to every detail. And it just so happened that we were there for that event. And it happened quite often, not quite often, but it happened several other times where I knew ahead of time, either for someone or whether that individual or not. And how ironic, each time I was somehow supposed to be there either for that person or for the family in passing on messages, not even realizing that I was doing so. And by sharing this story, for example, and I do so with clients and in groups, I found so many others have had this experience and have said, I've had the same thing happen. I don't understand why this is happening. And then I'll usually say, well, not to be freaked out by it, but in some capacity, did you feel drawn to pick up the phone and call someone, or to be, were you there in that person's life or the family's life? That may have just been a little bit of a heads up for you to go ahead and digest something early on to be able to be of assistance of healing in another way. But I think it's a lot more common than people realize.
I do think it is too. We are so connected to where we're going on a certain level, on a spiritual soul level, that we can tap into things that are going to happen, or the spirit world can guide us through situations. But that's pretty incredible because, I mean, some of my first experiences were with symbols, were, you know, an Irish symbol, like, flashing in, oh, that person has Irish ancestry, or like a bag of Cheetos means something, but you're getting a funeral with wallpaper and you're like, whoa, like what does this mean?
Mhm.
You don't really want to think that necessarily if you're seeing something, I would imagine, like that for the first time, but it's real and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that's what you connected to, and that was an ability that opened up for you.
And sometimes, and speaking with others too, there's an experience that some people don't want to talk to others about it, don't know who to talk about it. And I've had several other times the night before my grandfather passed, seeing a lightning bolt inside the house, and then not wanting to, do I even share this? My husband's going to think I'm absolutely insane for saying it, but again, and my daughter ended up seeing it too, which was rather interesting. So we've had a lot of incidents, and my children can say, from seeing my grandfather walk skin and bone in my backyard, seeing this man walk, it was the same gait, the same clothes, different hair color. He appeared about 40 years old, and he disappeared behind the wall.
Whoa.
And I just stood there frozen saying, well, that was him. Or another time when my husband and I had stepped out, and my daughter saw someone walk inside of my office. And she thought, well, who's that? And when she walked inside of the office, she saw the lamp smoking. They called the fire
Whoa.
department. So there was no one. So we've had, and I had a heads up about a fire a few years ago, which we were very grateful. It didn't create a lot of damage. But so going back, I've had a lot of heads ups from spirit. It's just been within the past, I'd say, decade where things really opened up, because it's about self-acceptance. And I think a lot of people are afraid. I'm not a big fan of labels of any kind. We're just, why put a label on it? But there is that self-acceptance that, especially as, intuitives, as mediums, to really accept who we are and who we've always been. But then there's also, in my case, there was an acceptance of a calling. And that's where my father came in, where he actually, appeared to me after just various passings in the family of how was I there? How was I supposed to be there? Just the stories leading up. All were preparation. So kind of what you were talking about, you have to walk through the fire.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully not the actual,
No.
literal fire. Spirit was protecting you from that. That's amazing. So you had multiple heads up with things in your life to avoid crises.
Right. And, and again, it's through these stories. Years ago, like I remember college, and people say, oh, tell them this story. I always have these stories, like, tell them the story about when you knew this. And so it was fun. And, but on the flip side, I love when people talk about their experiences, because either some people forget them, or some people don't feel safe enough or comfortable enough to open this up. And it's such a release for a lot of people to say, you know what? I have had experiences, and you're the first person. I'm sure that, people have said this to you. I've never told a soul this before, but they feel comfortable opening up. And that's what I love about, your show. I love the fact that you're creating this environment, not so much for people to agree or even comprehend, but to simply ask questions and to simply broaden that awareness just a little bit wider as to how much more vast this experience is, and to question it. We don't have the answers. Simply question it, because, truly the answers are from within.
Absolutely. Like I think that's really, really important. We don't have to agree. And in fact, there's many different things with the question marks that, you might talk with another psychic medium about, and you're like, I don't quite see it that way, or I'm not sure about that. But just to embrace that discussion, because we don't have it all figured out, but sometimes we do get these bursts of knowing, and to honor that and to really like invite that to come more into the forefront of conversation.
And how important that is. It's just like anywhere else in life. We have to understand we've all had different life experiences. And whether it's through mediumship or not. And we have to respect that. We just have to respect other people's experiences. And if it's true, it's true for them, but at least be open to that. And, if it's true for them and your experiences are true to you, but to simply embrace it, not to create any more division amongst any groups, especially our own. It's so important, I believe, for everyone to go ahead and come together in that respect, to agree to disagree and to embrace that the things that we do know, the fact there's so much more to this human experience than what is visible. And we also perceive different experiences differently because of, life experiences. Or when you take a look at religion, for example, those that live in an Amazon rainforest have not been, exposed to Buddhism, Catholicism, and so forth. But they're around the world, regardless of civilization, people have always, you go back millennia, as to that there is something more to this. So it's not that one's better than the other or someone's right or wrong. But if we can go ahead and embrace the fact and create this open communication and broaden up ideas and minds to continue to question, not even to find the answers and to understand we're never going to know the answers while we're here. So why not just go ahead and enjoy and really not just exist in life, but to really live this life to the fullest and not get, caught up in, the small things that, the day-to-day grind, to really, get out there, not put things off. And that's one of the lessons I've been taught from the other side.
It's bigger than us, but also to kind of, be okay with saying I need this within my life. And however the aha moments come to people, to shake them up, wake them up, I think that is what should be celebrated, to showcase, hey, yeah, there is something more to life, really make this life special. And so I think it's cool because, you are a medium, but a skill that came into your life to further inspire people was the spirit art.
Yes, it was. And this actually goes back to my first experience with my father. So years ago, I'll just go ahead and back up and explain. He came to me, I was fully awake. And it was like, I can't even tell you, the most monumental experience I've ever had. It was, my son was sitting next to me at the time. And I was like, oh my God, this is real. And, I said, well, now that I have you, I'm like, do you know how long I waited for you? It's been 40 years I've been waiting. And now that I have you, I don't want you to go away. And he said to me, there is no away. And that's always stuck with me. And I always, I created small businesses to honor him, because it was an unexpected passing. He had just started a business. So I wanted to honor him my whole life. And it wasn't until, a couple of years ago, he's like, you weren't supposed to, you're not supposed to go ahead and create a business, to honor me. We're supposed to be business partners.
Oh.
And I can't even begin to tell you the amount of stories I have on that. So anyhow, so with the drawing, it's funny. He was, I'm sure, automatic writing, for example, you've heard of. And so there's, inspired writing, which is something long before I understood that I was a medium. I'd get into a deep meditation and all of a sudden all these images, and I would just hear and I would just start writing things, pages and pages within 5 minutes. I'd have just writing this down. And then there was what I consider to be automatic, where it's like a little bit of a guided hand, even a physical sensation. And so again, not knowing I was a said medium, he is actually the one who said, well, go ahead and pick up a pencil or try on the keyboard or what have you. So he's the one that introduced it to me that way. And so even back then, just different drawings started, occurring, or I'm trying to think what else. Also images that I would always see images in clouds. And this all comes together from the time I was little. And I know there's people say, well, that's a psychological condition, which I don't disagree, to each their own. However, when this book does get finished, I have some phenomenal photos. Because I have my father and my grandmother's face in the same cloud. I mean, it's undeniable.
Ooh,
so
that's cool.
Or capturing their images of they're guides now, but friends, that are in spirit, who have actually one in particular who's really helped me from the other side since his passing. But being able to capture things, just not even realizing it on with the camera, just your iPhone or what have you. So it's from seeing that I'm able to go ahead and draw. I don't see them. So I was doing a reading one evening back in January of, 2020? And I was just doodling mindlessly. And I just did this drawing of a face. And the person said, "Oh my God, that's him." I'm like, "Stop." Okay. And really what happens, I used to do this. I like to be creative and craft sometimes, peeing on from windows or things. People would say, "Well, how did you do that?" I'm like, "I don't know. I just saw it." And I used to always say this as a kid. Whenever I would draw, because I did like to draw, but I would see the drawing already on the paper. I'm just tracing the lines.
That makes sense.
That's really how it happens, where I can look at a piece of paper, and it's almost, sometimes it could be like a hieroglyphic, and I'm just tracing the lines if I can capture them down in time. But I'm a novice, and I will be a novice, I think, forever. There's just too much to learn. We can never master anything, but this has unfolded so much. I'm a see it to believe it type of gal. And I think there's a lot of other people. And I'm like, this is mind blowing, because just like a reading, and I would encourage everyone, whether you're practicing mediumship, whether you've had experiences, just to let your intuition go, and whether it's looking away even, or even just doodling, whatever comes to mind. So many images can come down on paper that have such a complexity and so many different layers to that. It could be a shape, it could be anything. But a picture is worth 1,000 words. A lot can come off of a portrait. So it's been fascinating, evolving, but it's something I truly enjoy, and I just trying to keep having that patience, because I'm still learning, and they've got patience with me, so I have to have patience with them.
Well, you have the natural skill of just being able to replicate what you're seeing, and like you said, I just trace the lines. And so you are locked in. That is a definite ability.
Yeah, it's an ability. Just like, everyone can sing. I can't sing well, but I think everyone has that ability to go ahead and do it. It's not something I knew existed, or, even thought about prior. But it really, it's a lot of fun. And it helps, even not just people, but sometimes things would unfold. Again, before I was studying or working as a medium, I remember that's one reason why I don't watch the news anymore, is just with all these stories that would pop up, and just randomly I'd get images, someone missing. And I remember one time something popping up, and I drew out the bed, I drew out a bedroom, the lineup, and the living room. And when I saw, unfortunately, it was a mother and a daughter. And then I actually asked my husband, I said, "Well, look it up, see what happened. I want to see if they haven't been found yet." So it was about a week or so later, they were, and unfortunately, but it was one of those, how did I accurately see, and what happened? And again, because I'm a medium, I think everyone has mediumistic ability, or has had mediumistic experiences, because we are a soul in a human body. But first and foremost, soul, we're all connected. So that's why I encourage everyone, if you have an idea, or you're doodling, I feel everybody could benefit from simply sitting, having quiet for 5-15 minutes, and just get that out.
I like that that description. I we're energetic beings, foremost, so we're going to have these energetic experiences, and if we just sit down for 15 minutes, certain things are going to come to our awareness. Certain things are going to kind of become ahas to us, and everyone's very different with how that goes. But absolutely, I think that's kind of like the most inspiring ticket to meditation. Like get in a space, calm down, relax, see what your superhuman abilities are.
Very true. Now, were you able to meditate from the very beginning? Were you
um,
someone?
oh gosh, let me try to think about it. I think I was. I think that I was kind of so shook with what was going on around me that I was just sitting down in spaces going, what is going on? And I would just space out. I'm like, what is going on? So I was like, my mind was just like, I need to figure this out. So I would sit down and I would just be thinking for hours and hours because my inner world wasn't matching my outer world. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But there's been many times in my life where I have had difficulty meditating. If I feel more like my life on the outer world needs more paying attention to, and my body will actually reject it. So I've had very, very different experiences with how meditation works for me.
Yeah, no, and the reason why I ask, and I can relate to a lot of that. I used to say I'm way too ADD for meditation. There's no way I could possibly sit and have quiet without my mind going. But after a while, I was able to, and now the solace that I get, whether I need to recharge, it just knows. If I know just to have a minute to recharge and be fully awake, or even before to wind down before bedtime, let's say, to go ahead and relax. But it's so therapeutic on so many levels. But I think this is also too what really busted open the drawing it, but everything really for me too, of just giving yourself that opportunity to have some quiet time with you,
Yes.
just to go
Yes.
ahead and be. And I've had people say, right, like, oh, I can't do that. I'm like, I totally get it. And that's the thing, I get it. um But I'll say, "Do you drive?" "Yeah." "Okay."
Yeah.
When you're driving and you're like, "Oh my god, 5 miles, 5 I don't even know what happened. I should not be driving right now because I have no idea."
It can be scary at times, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. How many times that's happened to you, or you've had these awesome ideas, or like the shower. The shower is the best place, and you're just so mindless. Next thing you know, it's like the answer to this problem that you've been looking, because you were able to silence your mind. So it doesn't have to
Absolutely.
be in front of candles or, a
Does not
statue
have
or
to be.
anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be that, but give yourself that gift.
I think that's so profound and it makes, the esoteric so practical in the explanation. When I was even a kid, and a teenager, and young adult, I would just like draw all the time and it would put me in a place where I could go through my thoughts or go through like just release energy. And so I guess if you can look back in your own life, everybody's listening who's listening, have you taken moments out of your life where you've gotten to a state where you could just be with yourself and how does that feel? And then with Maureen's comment, she was like, oh, the shower is the best place. It is for me. That's why I frequently come in with wet hair because I go into the shower and I know how I want the interview to go. I'll connect to like, okay, what's the inspiration? Like all of a sudden I get these little ideas and I go, okay, that's it. That's what we have to talk about today. And the best ideas come in that way for me, at least. How about you, Maureen? Like with
Yeah,
how you go about your work and things like that.
yeah, it's just, and I think a lot of mediums can understand this too, especially starting off where, you're just about to fall asleep at night, and next thing you know, you've got a room full of people, or someone's trying to go ahead and wake you up, and it's like, not now, or 3 a.m. So there was a time when that would happen quite often. But it's that silence of the mind that's so necessary, and it has nothing to do with the outside world, because you're able to not just cope, but to get the most out of this experience, the sooner you feel comfortable in your own skin. And you know thinking is great. Sometimes, a lot of time, thinking gets you into a lot of trouble, so because you overthink things. So really, with the whole, being quiet, and even sitting 5 minutes, like nourishments, like vitamins, it's soul vitamins for yourself. It's just to reconnect with you. um
Yeah.
Especially those with little kids, the moms that will run into the bathroom, close the door, and just sit on top of the toilet seat cover, just to get those 5 minutes. I've had that. But, it's so important because it fills a need just the way that food and sleep does. You need to go ahead and reconnect with you. And breath. I used to think this was so dramatic. Breathing on purpose. It's like, why do I need to breathe on purpose? I'm going to go ahead and pass out if I breathe the way. So there's certain ways we could all do it, right? Or not do it. But there is something to be said for, instead of thinking, getting out of the mind and actually listening to your gut, your
Yeah.
instinct, which by default we all have. So the sooner
Yeah.
we can learn to trust and differentiate the difference, that's the name of the game right there, of who are you. You could go ahead and think, but all of a sudden if something hits you in the gut, that's where you think on it a little bit, but not until, it's not the other way around. So that, I have to say, meditation has been crucial for my sanity, I think.
Yes, that's fair it's very fair to say. I think everyone who's had a moment, you know, with just having quiet, or to release in a it's, yes, that's the notion. That is the absolute notion.
And you brought up something earlier too that I'll piggyback on. You had talked about signs, wanting signs, and where people need a sign and people want a sign, and having it the third time, that really stood out to me. And this kind of ties in with the understanding, that gut understanding, actually quite a few things that you spoke about, because I know in the past when this all really busted open for me, there's an expression, the dark night of the soul. It was like dark months of the soul. It was kind of nutty. I didn't quite understand all that. It was just so much at one time. And there's a difference between wanting a sign, and needing it. And we will get those signs that we need, but we can't be so selfish either and keep putting in all these frivolous orders. Like, okay, go ahead and tell me, should I have, Taco Bell or McDonald's? Send me a sign, send me a hummingbird if it's supposed to be Mickey D's.
Well, I mean, that sounds like kind of fun, but you can't get that meticulous with the spirit world. They don't speak like that unless they want to, and you won't. We don't get to choose. That's hilarious, though.
Well, I'm being playful, but it
Right.
on a serious note. It's when there is a real need, don't be afraid to ask for a sign. And I can go by a few different things too, where I needed it. Like I was, either, God, universe, however you want to call it. No, I haven't spoken to you in quite a while. But I need to know if I'm supposed to be doing, this calling that I feel so drawn. I don't understand why, and I don't even know what it is, and I don't know but I need to see, 10 hawks. This is so,
Yeah.
for me, it was very a true thing. I'm in my back step. And I said, no, I'm serious. You either take this away, or if I'm supposed to be doing this, I've never seen 10 hawks. Where I live, we have, a little kettle of 3 or 4, but I've never seen. So I was being spiteful.
Oh.
This was really a rough day. This is right before
Yeah.
everything kind of busted open. And sure enough, and I pulled out my phone and I was being very spiteful, up close, those were 9. I never saw 9 hawks. And the 10th one flew right in. Now, I've shared this story many times. People say, okay, you saw 10 hawks. It's not about, when you get a sign, it's not about that feather. It's not about the penny, whether it fell out of your pocket or appeared. It's the feeling you get at the same time you see it or hear it. It's not every time you hear that song, but when you have something stir in you that reminds you of, that relative or that friend, then go ahead and recognize it, say thank you, and then you can go ahead and say, do it again. But and this is something I'm so passionate about, because there's a lot of people on the fence. They want to believe where they're at. They may already know. Maybe they haven't completely come out to the closet with it, and it doesn't matter. Or the most important thing is the self-acceptance with the relationship that you have, with your own self. And once you go ahead and double down and dig your heels and saying, this is my experience, and I know which is embracing and intersecting and overlapping with everybody else's, but everyone is here for multiple purposes that happen to involve other people. So there's only one you. Your experience is supposed to be unique to you. So just continue to learn from others, but you kind of feel the tug. Even if you're going in a direction, but something doesn't feel right, let spirit go ahead, and they'll definitely guide you one way or the other, to where you're supposed to be. But to embrace every experience in that way, and the meditation and that double checking is really where that comes in handy. If you allowing yourself those 5, 10 minutes, 60, to go ahead and double check. And that's a great place to ask, for signs too, or validation. And that's great to have a notepad, even if all you
Yeah.
have is an image of a triangle or something. But yeah.
It's right, even if it's just a little image of a triangle, and that could be very profound actually depending, but,
Hmm.
um, all of it's pretty profound. To look back, like, for instance, when I was, starting my journey, and I would just, I'd, like, pull cards for myself, or I'd meditate and bring in spirit. I would just write down kind of what I was getting, and I thought it wasn't that great. I was just like, "Whatever, maybe this will mean something," and then I'd go back, like, a month later, and I'd just be like, "Wow, there's actually a lot of stuff in here that I completely just overlooked and I didn't really deem important until I got it." And even with all, and I'm curious, your experience, Maureen, like even with all the experiences that I have had, whether it's symbols or animals or, spirit, etc. When they happen, I actually do not have the tendency to tell people about it. I might tell like one person about it. Um, and I go, wow, why am I not talking to people about these fantastic events? And, it seems like it's the oddity when really it's actually the reality. The 10 hawks, like how many people did you tell about that? Or were you in like kind of disbelief, or how did you acknowledge some of these things?
That's a great question. Well, since then, I didn't tell many people prior. I don't think I told anyone,
Right.
because then I'd have a really long backstory, and a lot's unfolded. You brought up a lot of good points there. Um, with your writings, and I can understand that too. I have writings long before all of this opened up, and I regretfully don't have some of them, but some of them will be very profound, and a lot, in my opinion, should not make sense to you right away. Just like a reading with a medium. So it's funny that you bring this up too, because I'll always encourage people to take notes, and I'll either, whether it's inspiration and you just want to go ahead and write and it just could flow, and other days it might just be a symbol, a single word, whatever it may be. Hold on to those. I can assure you, I don't take my word for it. Test it out for yourself is what I often say, but especially readings too. Uh, and the best example, and I share this with clients and others, that for years I had different mediums tell me that my father played the guitar, and at first I'm like, no, 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 no. And long story short, I found a letter about a year or so ago that he had written from Vietnam, that he had no time to play his guitar.
Ah, yeah. Yes.
I had other readings where mediums had told me about, Irish symbols and all this. And with my grandfather, I understood all of it. Then they started giving me these names, and I'm like, it was so good. No, I don't understand that, but I'll have to think on it. I'm so thankful. I saved all these notes. All these mediums were correct. I just found out something magical about my family, that it's a little bit more extended on that one side. So it's there are so many times that they love to educate us from the other side. And I know with my father, and those that I work with regularly, or my grandparents, and sometimes more than not, but we'll get different symbols, or we'll get different bits of information, and or a feeling, and it's usually a heads up. It's not supposed to make sense, because we need all the other puzzle pieces to click in. It might be a week
Right.
out, it could be a year out, it might just be a few days. But the more that you can keep track of it, it's not for others, it's for you. It's
Right.
again for you to double down, to trust your intuition to keep it flowing. Because if
Absolutely.
then you start clicking on full force the brain and the thinking, and that's again where it gets you into trouble.
There's some things there's some things that we just don't know, and I do think that that's just the power of the spirit world. Like, they shine light on that, because I can take exactly everything that you're saying. I had a good relationship with my grandma. I didn't see her all the time. I saw her like maybe 3 times a year, but when I did have time with her, I spent a really good one-on-one, a lot of time with her, right? So I felt like I knew her personality really well. Well, all these people coming in telling me about her would tell me about her personality and how she was like very stern and she could be like bossy and stuff like that. I'm just like, well, I can see an aspect of that, but it's just like I can't take that for her. But then I learned who she was as like a friend, or how she was like in other avenues of her life, not as just a granddaughter grandma relationship. um or just one of my favorites too is, I don't think I've ever mentioned this one. So I have 4 cats, and I knew I wanted to get, like when you want to bring a fur baby into your life, you're like, it's coming, like, like, what baby is gonna come my way? This is amazing. And I had my heart set on two girls. I hadn't, chosen who they were going to be yet, but or they haven't chosen me, whatever.
Mhm.
And so the mediums were coming in, saying like, oh, there's cats from the spirit world. I'm like, I can take that, like I'm going to have that in the future. And they'd be like, oh, it's 2 boys, or, it's like, they would tell me these coat patterns. I'm like, I would never choose that. Like, you know what I mean? And everything they told me, like the amalgamation of it, what various mediums said, it all happened. So I, it's just, I could have not predicted that.
Mhm.
Have you gotten that psychically as well, where people go, you're going to go here, you're going to do this, you're going to experience that, and you're just like, I don't know about that, and it has happened?
Yeah, I had someone tell me that I was going to be doing art with my mediumship, and I'm thinking, I couldn't quite,
That's
this
good.
is true, and I couldn't quite figure
That's
out.
good.
I also had mediums that were totally wrong that told me that I was a medium, that you should be in my seat. I'm like, okay, well, they were almost correct on almost everything. So it's funny. And I think to a degree, there are certain things I do believe that the future is not solid. Those are my personal beliefs. I feel that there are certain things that can be predicted, but other things that there's still a choice. And that's just how I don't think that everything can be exactly as we think, although I do believe certain things can. Um, but it's funny, you brought up something else too. With relationships and with your grandmother, I tell people a relationship's between 2 people. So if you had a mom that had 10 kids, or 3, there's a different relationship between each and every one. So we have to keep that in mind. And as recipients, when we're receiving a reading, and our grandparent, or even being the recipient of getting little droplets of information, keep in mind, in my opinion, when they are going ahead and passing on information for us, they are people. They're not just energy. They're still individuals. They're not, there's someone like, they don't want to be seen as zoo animals.
Oh
And,
no.
and
Yeah,
this is
you're
true.
right. You're
The only
right.
difference is we've got the body and they don't, but they're still individuals, and they still have this palpable life to them. And it's just hard for us to completely comprehend, but life does continue on that way. So, you know, when in receiving a reading, sometimes it's difficult because there's a want. Well, I want to hear where the money bags are. I want to know the social security number and the password for the vault. I mean, but it's funny because there's the wants. The thing that I've learned, especially over the course of the past couple of years, is when a loved one wants to come through, especially through a medium, it's because they have a need. And it may intertwine with something going on in our recipient's life or in our lives right now, but there's so much more to readings than, in my opinion, people take for granted, and either don't take notes or they don't revisit it. But it is truly like an onion, because there are so many clues. There's so many complex. Why did grandpa go ahead and start talking about his 30s? Or why did he bring up the business? Or what's going on right now? Or what's going to be happening in the next week or so? Why would he open up his life book and open it up to this page when he could have gone to any of them? So I feel, as mediums, but also as those that aren't, that are, just to really, whether you're getting a little droplet or you have this random idea, whether it is from grandma or whether it's, from the just your soul, you're getting little droplets. We all do. the sooner you can recognize that, it just, in my opinion and in my experiences, it helps to guide,
Yeah.
and helps to make you feel with synchronicities, coincidences that happen on purpose. Once you get into these flow of synchronicities, like, okay, I'm on the right path right now. So I think that's a good marker too for that. But anyhow, I got off. But yes, as far as
No, you didn't. You were on the money. I don't want to take away that thought. What were you about to say?
no, I was just saying with the needs and wants and then having a relationship, we have to be open-minded because our friends from high school, our classmates may think of us differently or have different as our as a great uncle would have of us or as the neighbor down the street.
Yeah, there's just so many variations of what we experience with other people that it has to be accounted for. And I do think that highlights. So, for anyone who's looking to develop, their abilities, I think it's very, very important to make sure you put yourself in an environment with other psychic mediums because those are some of the best sitters. Like, sitters are people who receive the readings. And because they're able to open up their mind and go, "Oh, I think I know what you mean. I think I know what you mean." And there's a, and I know that you've noticed this, Maureen, but it's very interesting when you read someone who, and again, not one size fits all. I would say this applies to the majority of mediums, not every single medium. But when you do a reading for a medium, it gives a lot of aha moments, and when you give someone a reading who isn't a medium, uh, they can't validate the same way. They can't validate the same way always in every single when you're first beginning. That's what I'm saying. When you're first beginning. So allow yourself to um trust yourself by putting yourself in environments when you're beginning with other like-minded people because they will help open up that space for you, not close it down.
Oh, 100%. And for some of us, well, I could speak for myself. I thought I was the only person on the planet. I didn't know another medium. I didn't like, who am I going to talk to about this? And so, in speaking with others again, and everyone works differently. So some people may not be able to. They may not receive information the way that you do. And the beauty of the internet is how we get a chance to meet others in different classes and and locally. But one of the best lessons I've learned in the past couple of years, especially, has been, getting involved, joining groups online, or if you have that luxury in person of like-minded individuals to create, a conversation, see who that you jive with, whose energy matches up with. And by conversing, I know it's actually outside of work. Often I've learned so much from other, medium friends too, where we're able to work things out, and it's made all the difference of just being able to work things out on the spot, not even just from readings, but it's like, oh my gosh, I had a dream, or I woke up to this song, and then by having that, it, they may be led to, well, I don't know, to different to help you to put the puzzle pieces together. Is basically what
Yes.
you want to say. But collaborating, I would love to see a lot more of that. I would love to see a lot more of that, and having fun and um, working differently but together and creating conversation and may not happen right away in the beginning, to be able to find someone, but it's part of the journey and it's so much more fun to be shared than by yourself.
Absolutely. It brings so many unique moments when you're putting puzzle pieces together. It's funny. So you mentioned earlier, you're like, I was never one of those people where I really acknowledged like breath. You know what I mean? You're like, I thought that was weird just telling someone to breathe. But, with my experience in knowing you, there was one time when we were together where you told me just to relax and breathe, and that had a very profound, uh, you know, uh, impact on me with being a medium. So I think that's hilarious because that you helped me with the recognition of breath.
Well, it's funny because I can't really take credit. It's actually my father. It'll just be the most random things. And I know that's not, listen, I get it. I'm at the point now where when I go ahead and have an experience, what's really cool is he'll go to a friend or two of mine. And so I'll get a text message like, by the way, I think your dad's here. And I'm like, oh my God, we
Wow.
were just saying the same thing. So this is where it gets really neat when you get to collaborate and they get to know. But it was always given to me, breath. Again, before I like breathe. And I'm like, why breathe? Like, I'm breathing. What else do you want me to do to breathe? I'm breathing on purpose. So there are certain things now that flow that I think have finally been instilled and have to be reminded myself. So I think that's why I share things so people can go ahead and say, remember you said this, thank you, I needed that. But it's so simple. But also there's just so much more to, okay, there's the drawing and, you've got healers, you've got astrology. I know, it's, you've got numerology, which I wasn't familiar with until a friend of mine, actually the night before his burial, I got a text message from his mom's phone, talk later, which is a really neat story. But long story short, he's taught me so much from the other side. It was at 11:11. I didn't understand the angel numbers or anything like that. His mom never sent me the message. She responded 15 minutes later saying, I don't know what to make of that. I didn't send that to you. Talk later.
Wow.
Long story short, Tommy is really significant with helping me from the other side, which there's a lot of irony too. But with angel numbers, where was I? There was something. What was I just about to say to tie in with that?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just saying whether it's drawing or angel numbers or astrology, whatever your interests are, where you feel pulled, I'm one of those people to say, okay, not even you can take classes. There's nothing wrong with classes, but you're getting a teacher's perspective as well as the teachers that taught them or their life experiences, which is golden. Don't get me wrong, but don't just take that, play with it. So, I've had different, for example, with the spirit art, I don't do it I don't know the traditional way, whatever the traditional way is, but where I feel pulled, and so I'm kind of making it my own. I have a little card here, it might be drawn where I feel someone's here and I may get some information. So I might jot it down on the sides and I may know who it's for, may not, but I had this recently for someone, and her bridal shower was coming up. I'm like, do I want to give this? I got her mother also is a medium. So this happened recently, and a lot of information made sense. A lot of it didn't, but it was neat because I was able to give that to her at her bridal shower. And it's really interesting because the information was necessary to be given that day, in particular with the information that was provided, because she wanted to say, I'm going to be there. I thought, oh, you're going to be there for the wedding. She's like, I'm going to be there for all of it. So sometimes we converse and talk. I'm like, well, she'll be there for all of it, but also gave a little heads up that day, which was really, really neat. But some people say, oh, well, you aren't in front of someone to draw for them. If I feel that I have someone, a person in spirit with me, and I feel this nudge, and it has to be, I don't know if it's a 3-time thing, but I will sit. Maybe that's out of the ordinary, but I will go ahead and sit. And I call them postcards from heaven, or, where I've had it a couple of times where I've had someone that wants to get through as a see it to believe it type of thing. And I've, put it on my page saying, I know I have this gentleman that is looking for his mom. And it's the timing. So not that I'm saying break all the rules, but on the flip side, I do feel that there are certain times that our abilities as a medium, whether it be through words, whether it be through drawing, whether it be through sending intentions or picking up the phone to call someone. And even for those that are mediums and don't realize it, or no matter what, you're all intuitive. Everyone's intuitive. So there are sometimes we get these nudges in life and we're not really necessarily supposed to understand them all, but
Right.
actions and, reactions or, directly or indirectly affect a multitude of people. And oftentimes we don't realize it. So I would just say play with your intuition, your writing, and not to put yourself in a box. That's not what we're about. Mediumship is so fluid and, just in general, intuitives. We're in a neat new stage that's about, I think, to expand open.
Yeah, I don't think this should ever be in a box. And I think, with that said, when the personification of that is you should embrace what works for you, but, like, don't expect it. There's plenty of things that work for me with my signs, and I will look for them. I'll be like, hey, I'm waiting for this to happen. And then if it doesn't, I go, okay, I guess we're doing something different today. And you just never know what's going to happen. I want to take some questions with what people are commenting on. So I'm kind of scrolling around because I'm inspired to do that. Um, there was one that I was looking for. I guess I'll just take whatever I can find, but there was one that I was looking for. Okay. Courtney asks, our flaws are what make us curious to reach outside and learn new things. How have you utilized that within your own development?
Our flaws? Hmm.
Are
Um,
what makes us curious and reach outside and learn new things?
that's a good question. I don't, I don't know about flaws. Maybe our quirks.
Yeah,
You
however,
know,
like what makes you different,
yeah.
or you're, like, oh, why is this, not the typical?
Well, I think that sometimes that we those things that make see, yeah, take take what makes us so different, and that those things that maybe others necessarily don't understand us or understand, the majority may not understand, turn that into something so beautiful. Um, uh, hmm. Again, I think it just goes back to finding ways to, whether it's, building confidence and exploring, and not so much worrying about how others perceive us, and being
Yeah.
comfortable with, like I think of Steve Jobs, or the story goes Steve Jobs. The reason why Mac computers have, why we have so many fonts today, is because he took a calligraphy class over at Princeton, like, for example, and I think that really what it is, if you feel drawn to something that may be popular or not, but you just have this niche, hobby or what have you, um, that's how some of the most beautiful, stories and people that we so, that we know so well. Um, there are people that have developed passions, had hobbies. It's to go back to it. I just think have passion. So with that question, is it a flaw? I don't think it's a flaw, but I think if there's an
Yeah.
interest, there are so many people that don't have interests. And like I shared, I remember with my grandmother years ago when she was still around, I said, you know, if money and time wasn't an option, so if you had all the money in the world, you had all the time in the world, how would you spend them? And she just got quiet. She's like, I don't know. No one's ever asked me that before. I wouldn't even know. And, it is a question that I love asking people at times, because it gets you thinking, if money and time wasn't an option, how would you spend them? My
Yeah.
opinion, time's a lot more valuable. So if you have hobbies, passions, oh my gosh, you're one step ahead of the game. Um, and I would just say explore them, because maybe what the direction that you're going, it is necessary, even if you're not doing it, but you needed it during that time as a building block. But explore, be a kid. People have forgotten what that's like. Keep questioning things. Just if you have an interest, oh, I can't go ahead. Just okay. If you want to take up, what do you call it? I don't know, some bow and arrow. I can't even think of the word right now. You
Oh,
question,
archery.
yeah, yeah. And it, but I'm just saying, just because it's not status quo, but if you have this nudge, and you have this, interest, I would say just go ahead and explore it, because it may not be that, but it might be that door that opens up, you know.
Right.
So, I just, whatever that may be, if and turn, I would just say turn things on their head a little bit. Don't worry about fitting things into a box. It doesn't have to be other people's way. It's not supposed to be other people's way, so I would say shine a light on it instead of trying to, turn the shadow. I would just go ahead and say, well, why is that interest there? And, expand on it. And maybe it's just for that period of time to realize, okay, that's not really what I want to do, but it's just as important what you don't want to do to know what you do.
They're both very important, and it's like that flip side of the coin thing that makes something what it is. It's like whether we consider it a flaw or a beautiful part, like what is that dependent on? Is it dependent on, our outside experience or somebody else or our own views? And to shine a light on all of it. I love how you said it. Hey, this is a unique question. So Jessie Cat asks, girls, I have a question. The reason for this question, because this is a topic with me and my family yesterday. Being spiritual, we cannot drink alcohol, like just a cup of wine. Is that okay or none? And then someone else says, good question. 2 mediums I know say they don't drink since becoming a medium. That's it. Hey, that's a unique question, but that's interesting to discuss, honestly. I can give my my views, and please give your views. I think everyone's so different. Again, one size does not fit all. So, would you like me to go first, or would you like?
No, go right ahead.
Okay, I like how you as we take a drink. I feel like alcohol, it's called, it's referred to as spirits sometimes for a reason, because it makes you feel not as grounded. So it can make you not as tied down to the earth. And, people use it to, I guess, be in a different state, right? And so sometimes it's talked about within spirituality of just, being in touch with your emotions. Actually, this part is talked about a lot. Being in touch with your emotions, being in touch with what's going on with your mind, being in touch with the energies around you. And I think when people get into an altering state, whether it's alcohol or other things, if they do that with a little bit too much intensity, that messes up their equilibrium, it would be hard to be in touch with what's going on, from a more objective standpoint. So, just more consciousness around substances does come into play with mediumship, because you're going into a different reality, so you want that perception to be clear. I was going to say something else, but it just flew out of my head, so let me see if I can get that back. If not, I'm going to pass it to Maureen. But Spirit just told me something, and it just flew past, so I might come back to it, but Maureen, I'm going to give it to you.
Okay, yeah, to each their own. It's funny because back in the day, and I can't think of her name, it escapes me, and I had it just recently. Back in the day, there were some mediums that they would not actually work. Actually, one with the police department would not work if she had unless she had a bottle of red wine right next to her and ready to be poured at any given time. So it is funny. A couple of things with this. What I would say is, you do you. There are a lot of, everyone has an opinion. Everyone does. The most important voice that you listen to is your own, of what feels right to you. There are, I think there's a responsibility with anything. It's just like, well, I probably wouldn't have something to drink and then get into the car. Like, there's a time and place for that. I would not have a drink. I personally, because I want to be able, when I'm working, I definitely, when I'm speaking with someone, or even whether it's not even mediumship and I'm just having a conversation with a friend, I want to make sure that I'm in the right frame of mind. And, as another... Back in the day when I first started off, I had someone tell me that the only way that I could give a reading is if my feet were touching the floor. This is so true. This is such a true story. She told me, I'm sitting on my feet right now, which is hysterical, because I thought the only way that I could give a reading is if my feet were touching the floor. I also thought back in the day the only way I could give a reading is by literally looking at the floor, because like clouds, that's how I gave a reading. I would see like clouds form on the floor, and that's how I saw it. So I thought, wait, I can't see the floor, I can give a reading, right? So it's what we put our focus on, kind of that same thing with the flashlight, what we're shining a light on. And we have to be so careful also of creating fears and just in life fears, um, because it's true if it's true for you. And I think there's a lot of people that, have this sense where if this happens, then this happens. So I respect all who wish, they wish not to drink, but I feel like everyone's different. And I
Yeah,
think
everyone
not
is.
to use it for certain things, like, this way you could be fully alert that would be my opinion, but you do as you like. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's so many different angles with this question. That's why I was like, oh, it's like unique, and it's just like you could go so many different directions with it, because you mentioned a little bit with how that one medium needed a bottle of wine before she read, and there is a consensus. Sometimes it's like, I want to get out of my body, I don't want to be in my mind, and so it helps me let go. So I've heard that perception from some people. Or like in Greece, like the oracles, they would actually get high before they, you know what I mean? So there is a history of why people talk about sometimes substance and what it means to be an oracle or a medium. But I do think, like, yeah, it's just like, be clear. You have a responsibility to be clear. And it things affect everybody so differently. It's just like diet, like, I don't ingest a lot of cheese before reading because my sinuses are going to be a mess. And then for someone else, like, they need that protein and they feel like $1,000,000. You know what I mean? It's just like, what are you ingesting? Does it help you or does it harm you? And everyone's going to have very different ethics on that with how it goes for them. And as long as it's working for you and you're being honest with yourself, that's the only thing I would really consider.
Hmm. Agreed. Yeah, it's funny. I'm the one stuffing my face up until I know others that they can't eat at all the entire day prior to working, and I'm like wiping off all the crumbs off my face. Hi, nice to meet you. We're ready to get going. But yeah, it's a common question. I think a lot of people, I was told there were so many things like I can't, what I can't do or what can't be done. And it may be true for that person who gave me that advice. So, one of my biggest things with working, with my guides, with my team is like, I don't want to have, I need to have, I don't need to have rituals. Like, I don't want to have rituals for me personally. And it's more of, because I know that when it's time to go, they're going to go ahead and be there. But there was a time that made me feel good. And that's me. There are others that have to go ahead and have a lucky coin with them, or, if they have there's nothing against that. It's what works for you. But, if you feel that you need it, then you do. But it's a matter of, I think goes back to that meditation. And in all seriousness, I just feel like the more you spend time with you, the more we evolve and change. And how you were last year, you're going to be different the next year.
It's it also brings up the question of, like, what do we really need to be ourselves? And I do think, like, sometimes we strip away what our needs are and we just, like, return back to spirit. But at different times in our life, we are human. We do need different things, and everyone's needs are so different. So it's like, we can't say anything, but everyone's needs are so different. That's what my heart really says on the matter. And oh gosh. Okay. So I think this is an important one to take. So let's take this one really quick question and then we'll transition. I think this one is tailor made for you, Maureen. Is the energy you channel channeled into the drawing, and do they receive that energy boost just seeing it? So I don't know who the they is. It could be you or the sitter. But is the energy you channeled into the drawing, and do they receive that energy boost just seeing it?
I can't prove that answer to you. I believe so in so many ways. It's neat to get feedback, even just from readings. But I've had people say, "Oh my gosh, when I saw that," I had someone say, "When I saw the image, it moved." Which I've had that experience before too. If you've ever seen something like that, they saw it or they could feel them right away. Um, you know, they just knew it was them, only from, let's say, the eyes. And oftentimes when I draw them, you guys, it's not 100%. Like sometimes it could be really, they might find an older photo, oftentimes, I don't care if they're 80, 90, they'll have me draw them younger. I mean, it's like us, right? If we're going to post a photo for 100, photo, we're going to pick it when, less wrinkle, whatever it may be.
When you know, you know.
Yeah. But there is something to be said for that. Sometimes, not all the time, but I have received that, and I've felt it too. It's usually when I've felt it, um, you know, um, or even the way the expression could be. And again, it's totally unintentional. I have no idea if it's going to make sense to a person or not. When I'm drawing, I really don't. So it's funny because, like, I can think of one woman, several, but this one in particular, she was like, "Don't give me any wrinkles. Don't give me any wrinkles." And as I'm drawing, I don't usually pull out an eraser. She's like, "Oh," she was actually telling me to get rid of the bag. No joke. Get rid of the bags under the eyes.
I believe it.
And she had this little smirk. And so there were little notes on the side too, but it was like that facial expression, that smirk, with a little key bit of information that didn't make sense to me at the time, that tied in with all, so it could be their essence. It's not going to be precise. I'm new at this, but it's their essence, and it usually reflects a certain time period in their life that they're referencing, or they could be having me draw them their age, so they have to go find photos. That's fun, of them at that age, which may be my recipient's age. But there's so many other hidden layers to it. Or they'll have me draw a necklace that was theirs, but that their recipient is wearing at the event. So, again, if we get into our heads while we're speaking or while we're drawing, just draw. Like back in the day, we were in kindergarten, first grade, we all had creative writing, drawing. That's been lost. And it brings me, I'm so encouraging of others, seriously do it. Just get a little notepad. No one has to see it, just to get energy out. It could just be scribbles. Oh, you can't draw? Which I have a friend who said that he couldn't draw, and now he's painting beautifully, which is really fascinating. But okay, if it's not drawing, it might be something else. Get your energy out that way. It's something that you can hold on to, and something visual. And, just to play with it. And if, not to say to be a Picasso, but so often our own intuition is extended off of our fingertips, whether it's feeling energy, what direction to go, whether it's, drawing. There's so much more, and I don't have all the idea, but I'm bringing this up to give you all ideas, to hopefully you share them back with me, because
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So many different ways. They were saying, thank you. I wanted to know about the gift that you give. Great messages today. So they're saying thank you for answering the question. And then people were actually in a funny way too. They were like asking about coffee. It's just, we don't have time to address the coffee right now, but it's just like, yeah. I've known mediums who have to drink caffeine before a reading. So it's like the flip side. You know what I mean? We could talk about so many things, like how do you support your body?
Yeah. And and we call it coffee. Coffee. We call it coffee over here. Yeah, coffee is a necessary. That is something, because usually, especially at night, if I'm working, I'm usually outside the house. So I do have my coffee. Yeah, no, I have to have my caffeine. So I'm one of those. I'm a bit of a rebel, I guess, in that respect, but water too.
I hear like a frequency of that. Like I have heard, not everyone, but I've heard so many people saying like, hey, the caffeine helps me, even just, and I don't know. I just remember hearing this on a TV show. Like Teresa Caputo said she needs to drink like coffee before she goes on. I've had, just some of my friends even say that they need that. And I'm just like, oh, that's so interesting. If I did that, my brain would be like, I would talk 5 times faster, and I would just, you've already heard it. I like bleed words in together and trip over my words occasionally, as is. It would be like way worse.
I get the coffee, that you don't need it. Like, I am someone, I remember there was a time I didn't need coffee, and that ship sailed a long time ago. So I didn't need it. But yeah, no, I want to stay alert. And so I do. I do like the taste of it and so on. But for or tea and if you don't need it, if you're not a coffee or tea drinker, don't start using it. But for those of us that do need a little pick me up, yeah. And also when I work, like I need light, for example. I can't do
Light.
it. People will say, "Oh, do you want is it supposed to be like a seance?" I'm like, no, no, lights, lights, lights. Yes, yes, I like light. I don't like the dark.
So you like it? Do you like it bright, or do you just like you need light?
As bright as we can make it.
Wow, that's so okay. That's so interesting because I'm very visual in the energies, and I find that too much light strains my focus sometimes with the visuals I get. And you're the opposite. I love that. I see everyone's so different. Everyone, there's no, but it's just right. So I like it a little dim, and you like it really bright. That's so cool.
Yeah, I like bright. I like to see, I like to see everybody and all that too, but also, I don't know if it's to stay awake.
That part of
Yeah,
it.
and usually I'm working at nighttime, so it's one of those, yeah, but I do like it. Yeah, isn't that interesting? Or,
Interesting.
like, you'll have certain people that say, "Oh, well, either to meditate or to work or whatever," they like the calm music, and, I mean, I'd be listening to, like, comedians on YouTube on a drive to an event, like anything to laugh, to raise the vibe, and then
Makes sense.
but sometimes you'll get there and everyone's like so riled, and then it's like, well, we gotta calm down just a little bit. So then it's like maybe that wasn't a great idea. So we have to match the energy too. Yeah, yeah.
Makes sense. It makes sense. you know, not too rowdy, but uplifting, high vibration. Okay, so I want to share where people can come find you to as well, Maureen, for readings, demonstration. You have something coming up actually for a demonstration.
Well, we do, yeah. I work with a friend of mine the past couple of years, so we work locally. So it's either businesses or homes that we go to. So it's actually a private event that we
Okay.
do. But yeah, you could certainly find me on Facebook. It's Maureen Dana. They'll talk about evidential medium and spirit artists. There's a website, MaureenDana.com as well. But yeah, feel free. I'd love to. If you guys have other questions, I
Or
hope this opened up everyone's awareness a little bit more, and not to have answers, but to ask more questions within yourself and create conversation amongst others. That's all I can ask for.
or even if people wanted to reach out and book a private event too, if they're in your area for
Mhm.
the
Oh,
spirit
absolutely.
portraits and mediumship.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Whether it be privately and also via, Zoom too. We do private, to do private and group events. Sounds good. So yeah, so MaureenDana.com, or you could find me on Facebook. It's Maureen Dana. I think it says evidential medium and spirit artist. So yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what I'd like to ask before we depart is I always put it back in the guest's corner to share a final piece of inspiration, whether it's something that just comes to you, a favorite saying. Some people, just will read a poem, even. It's just anything and everything. What would you like to share with a parting word from your heart?
It's so funny. I sat before, and I don't always do this, which is rare. Um, so maybe this is why it happened. I wasn't expecting. But right before we sat down to meet, I kept hearing everyone, everyone. So I'm like, everyone what? So I'll share this with you. Everyone has a story. And each story is beautifully intertwined with an immense amount of others whose experiences in life were affected directly or indirectly by mention or circumstance. And, you know, keep in mind, we talked about flaws or even scars. Scars and flaws, they tell a story. And, it's, um, there are so many things that we've experienced in life that we have to appreciate what we have, and to make us better people. And sometimes, and whether it's physical, whatever it may be, those flaws, scars, or those life experiences, or to have that we can help others who are going through the same thing. So I think we don't realize, by having our own experience, directly or indirectly, we can't have it without others. And so in order to go ahead and continue on, be solid with who you are, enjoy your own company, and embrace, yourself, flaws and all, because really, I don't think they're flaws to begin with. So I would just encourage for you to, share your stories with others, find other people to go ahead and collaborate with. And, one of the biggest lessons I've learned from the other side is this experience is not about existing. It's really about living. And if we were on the other side and we wanted to go ahead and reach our loved ones here, I mean, we would be encouraging them and we'd be guiding them, but we want them to go ahead and squeeze out like a lemon, right? So, if life is like black and white right now, make it color. Only you can do that for you. And, and just go ahead and, really live life to the fullest and, just have fun. So I know it's not all that profound, but I think sometimes life can be so simple. We just make it so complicated. And definitely I would encourage you all to meditate in your way, whether it's the 2 minutes in the shower. Hopefully it's not driving. Hopefully you pay attention all when you're driving, but to have some grace, give yourself some grace, and don't put yourself ever in a box. So that's what I would say. Thank you so much for having me on, Kelly, and for chatting over, I was going to say coffee. I guess Cinco de Mayo, we could have had coffee, but maybe not.
Coffee infused margaritas.
There we go. Next time. Then that's the next one. The after show with Kelly.
There's more celebrations to come, but yeah, it's thank you. It was very profound what you said. Very beautiful words. And so yeah, it's Cinco de Mayo, and it's also a full moon tonight too. Full moon in Scorpio. Yeah, so a lot of wonderful. It's very auspicious you're here, Maureen.
Quite interesting, yes. With the eclipse, actually, it's the week of my dad's birthday, so I have to tell you, I should have known there was something impending. Again, sometimes we get little signs and things, and I couldn't understand what he was talking about, but I swear he put a little something in your ear the other day to go to reach out. So yeah, his birthday was this week.
Oh, that's funny. There's a reason this date worked, and there was a little bird in my ear for it. So that is great. That is great. Sometimes we don't always think about the reasons why, but they're very profound why we're here together. So thank you for sharing this with me and being here with me. Everyone, please go with love, light, luck. And just like Maureen said, don't forget to live. We will see you next week with Shelly Sanders. And that's going to be for our Friday show and for the reading show on Wednesday. So see you then. Take care. Bye.
The truth is here and now on WLTKDB Talk Radio at WLTKDB.com.